there. Today, all you Disney lovers or cookbook people following along that I appreciate, we are cooking from the Princess Healthy Treats cookbooks. So this recipe in the back is a Mama Odie's Bread Pudding. I'll cut a little snatch of the picture of it there real quick. So this is kind of a dessert thing that we're putting together, and so I kind of have everything over here prepped and ready to go to kind of assemble. And this one actually requires a few other steps. And one of the things, last thing here, is the first thing we have is kind of a combination here. There's some eggs, some milk, and some other spices and ingredients. And again, if you're new, I don't give away everything because I don't think that that's fair to people that made the cookbooks, and I also don't want to violate copyright. So if you're interested in the exact recipe, I encourage you to get the cookbook. It's not that expensive. All right, here's all the ingredients that we have. Here's the kind of mixture. And then we've got some apples and some bread. Now the bread is a whole grain bread. Okay, so now we're gonna whisk together our kind of egg and seasoned mixture. Kind of get it good and going. And this said to use a large bowl. Now, it is a healthy treats recipe, so I think it's definitely healthier than typical bread pudding. You know, bread pudding tends to use sometimes, I've seen ones with like brioche and some really heavy breads, and this one uses more of a whole grain. I'm being risky today. I didn't put my apron on and I've got a white shirt on, but I just love this Disney shirt. Isn't it cute? I love wearing it when we go to the parks. And let's get this good and whisked up. All right. I always feel like people that bake and do things every day have to be in great shape that whisk things because, man, it really just works your arm, doesn't it? Okay. Anyway, this is gonna whisk up. So now what I need to do is add in the bread and the apples. So here's the bread. It's a whole grain bread. Now the recipe did say to cut the crusts off, so I cubed them into little things. A couple of the pieces, I do have a little bit of crust left, but I'm not too worried about that. I didn't want to spend hours and hours cutting one slice of bread. So I kind of stacked them like 3 high and then sliced them that way. It went a lot faster. All right, so I mixed the bread in and it says the apples. So here's my cut up apples. I used Granny Smith apples. That's what the recipe mentions, but I'm sure other kinds would work as well. They're starting to brown a little bit. One thing I do like to do with apples, and this might be a tip that you've heard from other people when it comes to cooking, is take a little lemon juice and kind of sprinkle it over the apples as you're dicing them up. So I did do that as I was cutting up the apples. A couple of them are still a little brown, but for the most part, they're still in pretty good shape. All right, the apples in here. I'm gonna take this and just mix it all together. I want to make sure everything's kind of nice and covered with the juices. Smells good. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, as you can see, I got my bread pudding mixed together in this thing. Now the recipe says to let this sit for 4 to 8 hours or overnight. I am putting this together in the middle of the day around lunchtime. My goal is to maybe serve this for dinner tonight as a dessert. All right, I took my pudding mixture out of the fridge. I stirred in some walnuts, and now I'm about to pour it into the dish and throw it into the oven. All right, I'm about halfway through my baking, and I took the pudding out of the oven as requested. Now I'm going to sprinkle some coconut sugar on it and put it back in the oven for about 20 more minutes, and then it should be ready to eat. All right, here is the bread pudding fresh out of the oven. It says to let it cool for about 15 to 20 minutes and then try it with either some yogurt or some maple syrup. My final thoughts and reviews on the Mama Odie Bread Pudding from the Princess Healthy Treats cookbook. Overall, I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite bread pudding. I think I'm more of a traditionalist when it comes to bread pudding. You know, the Granny Smith apples and the walnuts added something to it, and they were a little different, but I wasn't super crazy about the walnuts, if I'm being honest, even though I like the texture the nuts brought. I'm just not a big walnut fan as far as that flavor profile goes. And I appreciate that it was like a little bit of a healthier version, but I guess I like my bread pudding a little bit unhealthier, if you know what I mean, compared to this. But it was enjoyable, and I'm glad that I tried it. So let's get into the ranking scales. First up, I rank on a scale of 1 to 5 with the ingredients that are 1, easy to find and expensive ingredients, with a 5 being either harder to find or expensive ingredients. I gave it a 2. Everything was relatively easy to find, you know, whole wheat bread, Granny Smith apples, things like that, but you had to buy quite a few things, so it kind of did add up a little bit in the cost, so that's why I'm giving it a 2. Not super expensive, but a little bit of cost in there.
Difficulty on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being easy and 5 being difficult to make this recipe, I'm giving it a 2. It was really simple and easy to make. You know, you just kind of saw I had everything and kind of blended it together and put it in the oven. So it went over pretty well, but there was a little bit more steps involved than a traditional bread pudding. So that's why I think I gave it a 2. It just isn't quite simple like, you know, some of these other things that I've done. And would I make this again on a scale of 1 to 5, with a 1 being never and a 5 being definitely? I'm gonna give it a 3. Like I said, it wasn't bad, and maybe if I did try it again, I would do it without the walnuts and a few other things, but it really wasn't my favorite bread pudding ever, but it definitely was enjoyable enough that I would consider making it again in the future. All right, and that's my thoughts on the Mama Odie bread pudding.